Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm doing my jungle tier list for patch 13.22, so if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. To begin with, there weren't very many changes this patch. Most of them were just to follow up from the previous patch where we saw an overnerf towards Rammus, and then continuation on the brand changes, so let's get into it. Rammus is the first champion which I do want to talk about. He is in a lot better of a spot now. They overnerfed him on 13.21, they realized this and they buffed him this patch, but they've overbuffed him again, and now he's in this situation where he is one of the best jungle tanks to play in low elo, might even be the best, but still can struggle in higher elos, even though the buffs were catered towards early game, which is an elite focused kind of buff. In low elo, you can play him into most things. Into very hybrid heavy comps, you can actually make this champion function really well. And of course, the higher up as you go, you do want to be aware this champ does struggle into heavy AP comps and can lose to the likes of certain tanks, your Maokais, your Zacs, can struggle into the likes of Lilia, Nunu, champs like this. But yeah, good into very heavy AD comps, especially in elite play. But yeah, lower on you can play him into mostly everything and have a lot of success. So Rammus definitely worth picking up again. They might nerf him again this patch, we'll have to see, but yeah, definitely in a good spot. So Gragas had his E adjusted, but it no longer gives 3 seconds on impact. It now gives 60% of its remaining cooldown, which is a huge buff towards Gragas' close speed, and that enables him to have his E a lot more, but not enough of a win rate gain to really push him into the A tier. Kind of stays within the B tier. It wouldn't surprise me if they try again and buff him a bit more, but in its current state, decent B tier pick. You can snowball quite comfortably on this champion if you are very proficient and you're able to get good leads for likes of Night Harvester. Medjais can really enable this champion to be very powerful. His clear speed, obviously going up early game, has been a huge help. Definitely helps more in elite play. But yeah, in very high haste build cases, he is slightly nerfed later on into the game. But for the most part, there are buffs, so in a better spot there. Brand is going to move up into the A tier. Brand received continuation buffs this patch, 10% more on his passive burn, and alongside this he received a 10% AP ratio increase on the E. This was at the downside of losing like 5 damage on the E, and then gaining that like a 15 damage buff later on into the game, which was quite large for Brand. He maxes E second, I believe, in the jungle, and overall this has been a big win rate increase, so definitely deserving of an A spot. Alongside the likes of Morgana, he's a very fast clearer. He struggles a bit more in the ganks section, but yeah, once you have items on this champion, he does a huge amount of damage in team fights, and yeah, clears very fast, so definitely look towards picking Brand up. Briar received a bunch of nerfs last patch. They didn't really do anything. She stays in the S+ tier. Yeah, very power neutral in the changes, and the bug fixes just ended up cancelling out whatever nerfs whatever nerfs she had received. She lost a bit of like a bit of AD ratio on her ultimate. I believe she lost a bit of attack speed growth, but overall still thriving within the current meta. Does a lot of damage, has really good skirmish power. Her E is a really valuable tool to mitigate a lot of damage, and yeah, in a very good spot at the moment. So Briar still stays within the S+ tier. Wouldn't surprise me if she does receive nerfs this patch. Graves got nerfed this patch. He lost a bit of armor on his E. I believe it was a 50% nerf towards his E early on into the game. It went from like 8 to 4, or it might have been 4 to 2. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. But yeah, it was a relatively large nerf early on into the game, and then kind of stays relatively similar to what it once was later on into the game. So yeah, ended up being about a 1% win rate nerf. Keeps him within the S tier though, but towards the bottom of it, very close to being dropped towards the A tier. He still is very much strong with the likes of Youmuu's and Collector, and then you can obviously itemize into the likes of Cleaver. I know some people like the more Bruiser style where you can go pick up something like a Gore Drinker instead of the Youmuu's. It doesn't operate quite as well as the Youmuu's, but it is an option there. Alongside this, if you are going the viability options, then Cleaver is also an option within that tree, but I know a lot of people do like to finish it off with some crit items. The likes of Shield Bow, BT work really nicely with his kit. You can opt into things like Edge of Night. Guardian Angel works as a good last slot item as well, so there are options with Graves. Definitely he is still in a relatively decent spot, and yeah, definitely still considerable as a play option. Jax is someone who I wanted to add to this tier list. He's seeing a bit more play in the jungle, and he fits in quite nicely as a B tier option. Jax jungle in the past used to be a lot more of a popular pick, but after his rework, it was more of an ASU. I mean, it was an ASU. He actually gained decent amounts of play rate within the jungle, and definitely works as a solid option there. Not quite the clear speed which you'd like out of a bruiser, and can struggle into some of the AP matchups, but definitely functions as a good B tier option. The only other champion which I wanted to move in this tier list was Talia. Actually going to bump her up into the S tier. Talia has been relatively good for a while now, but has only more recently made the jump towards this S tier position as the meta's kind of shifted. More mobile champions have been introduced towards the high end of the jungle meta. The likes of Briar, I believe she can kind of function quite well as long as you get the E down before Briar Qs. And yeah, she can function quite well at the moment, and definitely a good pick to have within an AP option. So lots of strong picks within the jungle at the moment. In fact, across the board in most lanes and just most roles, there are a lot of solid options. There are a couple of picks like Briar and Ivan are really, really high in their win rate, but do have matchups which they can struggle into. Nocturne, not quite as high win rate as the other two, but definitely a really strong pick at the moment, deserving of his S+ tier. And then yeah, there are lots of viable tanks, lots of viable bruisers, lots of good AP options at the moment. There are champions which do struggle. Assassins, for example, aren't in the greatest of spots. A lot of the power of Youmuu's comes from the champions which poach it. The likes of Jace, Briar can poach it. Graves, obviously, another one which is really strong with it. Some ADCs, I know Vayne can sometimes go Youmuu's if you're going like the Essence Reaver style. MF, another champion which can poach it. Jhin, there are champions there. Caitlyn, of course, recently got nerfed, so she wasn't as good at abusing the item. But yeah, for the moment, meta's pretty stable, but are really strong options, definitely. But one of the better ones, I guess. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.